YouTubers. This time I have this is my newest truck. It's a HPI Savage XL. And I'm actually going to use a different setup so things don't seem so, what's the word? Scattered. I'm going somewhat from a script now. Like I said, this is a HPI Savage XL with the K5.9 Nitro motor, big block. I actually have an OS VG 0.30 max, and I thought that motor was powerful. It's got some torque, but this thing has not only torque but also high end. Basically, my history with the HPI Savage XL goes back about 8 months. The first time I saw one was in the hobby shop in Stockbridge, Georgia. That's the hobby shop I usually go to, because the hobby shops around here, they usually do planes. There's not many tracks. I mean, they have a track, but it's very poorly maintained. So at the time, I was more into a drift car and on-road cars, so I had gone up there to get a HPI RS4 Sport 3 Drift, which is brushed. So I put Castle Mama Max Pro with 3800 kV motor, Savage servo, just all together, car and everything, came up to about $800. That's how much an HPI Savage was at that time. So I let it go. I got the drift car, and I always sort of regretted it, but I always liked the drift car. Well, now I have this, so I'll go over it. I'm actually the third owner. I bought this from someone. He had only ran it one time, and someone had done a lot of upgrades to it. The body posts had been cut down, and the Pro line screw-on body mounts, holes were drilled, and the little screws were put into the body mounts. So it uses these screw-on caps instead of body clips, which I like a lot myself. I use them on a lot of my own vehicles, especially off-road vehicles. Now, the truck itself, well, I'll go over this body real quick. This body is the HPI Ford F-150 Ranger Lariat Edition. It looks like there's some breakage on the roof. I don't know. Oh yeah, there's a crack right back here. But overall, the body's in very good shape. And you don't see a lot of Savages with this body because, from what I hear, not many were made, and not a lot of people bought it. It has aluminum GPM A-arms all the way around. I believe they're 70-71 aluminum, or 70-75 aluminum. I can't remember. 70-75, because there's 60-61 and 70-75. My first run with it, the stock Metal Gear 10-50 waterproof servo started going out, and then today it actually went out, so I put in a Traxxas 2070, and funny enough, the Metal Gears can actually be moved from the HPI servo and put in the Traxxas servo, and they work. So that was pretty nice to be able to continue using Metal Gears, because something this big is going to need Metal Gears, even though it does have a servo saver. It has dual aluminum threaded bodied shocks with collars to set the preload on the springs. I don't know if the springs are stock. They are black, but I do know that when you buy one of these new, it comes with one shock and spring per side. So And it has a pretty plush ride. It's not really stiff, so I would think these would be softer springs. It has a N2G gas tank cover. The stock gas tank, I'll go over, it also came with this bag, which I'll go over parts that came in that. This was the stock gas tank, really dirty, and I just put that away. It's still fine. It has an N2G transmission cover, metal. A Rosin Racing spur slipper, motor saver, air filter, a very good fuel filter. It's actually a copper cylinder that looks like it's a bunch of copper beads that were put together just big enough for fuel to get through and nothing bigger, down to, I would guess, about 0.3 microns. That's how small the tiny little holes are. It came with everything except a radio, but right now the throttle servo is a Tactic Metal Gear servo. The steering servo is a Traxxas 2070 digital servo with metal gears, and the shifting servo for reverse is the 10-20 waterproof servo from HPI. There's also on this side a tune pipe. This was not on it when I got it. This was on it. I don't know if this is the stock pipe, but the guy that I got it from said that it runs better with this. I ran it with this than I ran it with that. This gives a little less low end torque because less back pressure, but overall more performance. I still have to completely put this exhaust deflector on. And I'm going to go through everything in the bag in just a second. Make sure I remember everything that's been done to it upgrade wise. It also came with the upgraded stainless steel disc brakes, but I didn't have the right outdrive for the rear, so I still have stock fiberglass brakes which work great. But now I'll get to some parts in the bag. And there are a lot of parts. There's a lot of plastic parts, like extra shock towers, like these body mounts. Basically what the guy did was shave these off, drill it, and then put the Proline posts down so the body could be screwed on. Orange and green springs. They're softer than stock. 4 orange and 4 green. 2 1600 milliamp hour nickel metal hydride batteries, extra pinion and ring gears, an extra motor mount plate that goes between the twin vertical plates, lots of clutch bells, like here's one right here. This is a 14 tooth. Other tuned pipes, it looks like. Headers. This looks like a second 2-gear setup. I don't know. I don't know this car very well yet, but I'll learn quickly. A complete. I took some parts out of this to set up my clutch bell because the clutch bell had way too much play. I can't remember. Basically, it would go back and forth way too much, so I had to take some parts out of here, some washers. But it has a flywheel, a motor mount. The motor mount piece, and a 17-tooth clutch bell. Some slippers of various tooth, 4 extra plastic upper A-arms. Just a lot of extra parts that are very nice, and the 2 extra nickel metal hydride batteries are going to be really nice. I'm going to try to squeeze 1 extra in there, so I'll have 3200 milliamp hours instead of just 1600 milliamp hours, because it does go dead fast, especially with 3 servos and such a big vehicle. Now, this is the second Savage XL I looked at. The first one, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was selling his, and except for it being dirty, I like that it had a stock body. It had some Big Joe tires on it. But the thing with this motor is, the older ones had two one-way bearings. One on the outside, like on a Traxxas Nitro, and one on the inside, which is known as the starter shaft holder. It has a one-way bearing on it. Well, when I started talking to him, he told me that the one-way bearing had gone out in that, and I started looking around. He gave me part number 15233. Well, that part is actually for the 4.6. I needed it for the 5.9. I looked. I could not find, even on eBay, and I rarely go to eBay. Even on eBay, they did not have the starter shaft holder for the 5.9. So I ended up just telling him, look, you're going to have to do something else. And he argued with me saying, you can find that part. And I said, dude, you're talking about the wrong part. This is the right one. He said, well, you can find it. And I said, okay, show me. He screenshot me a picture. I went to the same site, and all I had to do was scroll down that says on order or pre-order. That's what everyone says. Dollar Hobbies, Vortex Hobbies, Tower Hobbies, Horizon Hobby, everyone. So, and then he said, well, you can always buy a new motor. And I said, well, a new K 5.9 motor is between $150 to $200. And I said, why would I inherit somebody else's problems? So before we got into all that, I had started looking for another one. Even after I told him I'm not interested anymore, because the motor I wanted are ready to run. I've already done a running video with this, and it runs great. I will say the stock needle settings are extremely rich, but that's good for when you're doing a break-in. A proper break-in, you want it to be rich because you want it to reach at least 200 degrees, but you also want there to be a lot of oil to lubricate the parts because they're having to slide against each other to break in. As you can see, everything's purple, even the Integy plate. And like I said, the one-way bearing, I don't like that. The older ones had a one-way bearing on the inside on the starter shaft holder and a one-way bearing on the outside, which was just the starter shaft. The newer ones, the starter shaft actually has a hex casted into the metal, so you only have the one-way bearing inside the motor. I don't like that. I was actually told by some people on the Savage XL forums and groups, every third run, take your motor out. It's not hard to do. Take your motor out. Check the one-way bearing and the connecting rod where it connects to the crankshaft, because the one-way bearing likes to go out, or you need to clean it, which I clean it with WD-40 and then run some nitro fuel through it to get rid of all the WD-40, and it's clean. And I'll check the rod, make sure there's no stress cracks or anything, and it's fine. But the running video I did before I did this, it took about a minute for it to start because the one-way bearing wasn't grabbing. So, there it is. That's basically that. There's also a octane version of this. There's also an electric version. The electric version I would consider, but the thing about this is HPI is not distributing right now. They've been bought out by Ripmax. Some things are still getting out, but not much. But the octane, like the Losi, it's not like the Losi XXL, LST XXL2, which has a Dynamite .31 motor. It's the size of a Nitro motor, and I have, like I said, an OS .30, and it runs on Nitro. You're looking at 3-4 times the amount of power. But the one that comes in these, the motor is big, so that's just going to add a lot of weight to it. In my opinion, with these, you're going to want a nitro motor. I put gas in my fifth scales. Eventually, I would like to have an electric fifth scale, but that will come in time. Right now, I have my I set on a Cen Reaper, a 5T from Low C, and a couple other vehicles, RS4 Mini, a Nitro. But that's basically it for this. It's a very fun vehicle, honestly. If you could get your hands on one and you're interested in monster trucks that are Nitro, I'd say go for it. Pull the trigger, grab one. But like I said, HPI isn't distributing, so that's something that everybody's having to wait for everything to get back into place, for RipMax to... I will say the one thing I am happy about is now there is a HPI. HPI was originally Hobby Products International, and it was based out of Europe. Now there's some places in California, so they're trying to make it more U.S. based as well. But like I said, I would, on 10 scale, 8 scale, stuff like that, I'd like a big block over gasoline. Yes, nitro fuel is a little bit more expensive, harder to get, but in the long run, it's worth it. Yes, they're harder to tune, but once you learn it, that's a skill that cannot be replaced, especially in the RC world. So, I think I've pretty much hit on everything with this vehicle. I'm using a Fly Sky radio system. Spectrum may go in, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with my Fly Sky GT3C Titanium Edition. But it's a very fun truck, a lot of power. Haven't been able to get wheelies yet. I'm going to be getting mudslingers, and I'm going to cut out the small lug that's offset so it'll get more grip. And I'll be putting axial, oversized bead locks on it, because I always prefer bead locks. If I want to change my wheel, I don't have to unglue it, I don't have to bake it, I don't have to boil it. I can just undo some screws, take that wheel off, or just to change foams. I actually like to make my bead locks pneumatic, and it's not hard to do. You can just look that up online. All you do is tape the inside of the tire, so it'll sort of become like it has, what's it called? Brain fart. So basically it has, what is that damn word? I always have brain farts when I'm doing videos. Basically plies inside the tire. Belted, that's it. Belted. So it's sort of belted, and I use Gorilla Tape to do that. Really strong, and then I can air it up, air it down. But these thin tires, you really can't do it with. You have to have good quality Proline, RC four-wheel drive. You have to have good tires that are thicker than your ability to be able to pinch it. These Terrapin tires, I really don't like them. They don't get a lot of traction. They just rip up my yard. But that's really it when it comes to this vehicle. I'm going to stop the video there. Any questions? Any comments? Anything? Leave in the description box, not description box, the comments below. I tried to change it up. See, I even have little notes that I tried to follow about the truck itself and everything that I went over. So, that's it. I'm going to put the body back on. And hopefully if I remember something, I'll remember to get it out before I shut the camera off. It's a hell of a truck. I'm still doing a conversion on one of my Revos. Actually, I have two Revos. I have one that's the 2.5, which is the shorter wheelbase, that I'm going to turn into a Slayer, an E-Slayer. And then the other one is a standard long wheelbase Revo. They're both Nitros. And I don't like the plastic brushless editions because that plastic breaks too easily. I'd rather have a metal chassis. I've always preferred metal chassis, and just do the conversion. Just get a roller and do the conversion. Because sometimes you may even come out cheaper. You could get a $200 roller and buy a decent hobby link setup, then you're out $400, especially if you already have batteries and a charger. So I think I pretty much hit everything on this motor. I mean on this car. I am going to do some upgrades to this motor, like I'm going to port the sleeve a little. I usually don't show that stuff, because that's some techniques that I like to keep to myself, especially when I'm racing. I don't want people to see how I sort of get the upper hand using the same motor, just my tweaks to it, unless it's in a stock class where you can't touch it. But if you're in a modded class where you can change a few things but not a lot, yeah, I'll turbo the crank, maybe even mess with the timing a little, port and polish the sleeve, fang the intakes, and that's basically it. And do whatever I can just to get that little extra power out of there. The power that's there, it just needs to be released. Get the air in and out as fast as possible. And the last thing I will say is, I really do like the roto start. I don't use the little roto start that came with it. I use this, and I set the clutch so if it does become hydrostatically locked, I don't damage the motor. It'll do that, and even that too. Yeah, usually about 5 or 6 is what I keep it at. But I was working on some stuff earlier and just put this back in. So that's it for this. Next will be a running video. You'll see me trying to start it for about a minute. But I've taken the motor out, cleaned the one-way bearing, and everything's fine now. I can even show. See, works great. Love it. Really like this, but I don't like the fact that I've always been the type of person, I like a bump box and a pull start for backup. I like to start it with a bump box, and if it goes out, one yank on put the glow plug igniter on, one pull on the pull start, and it's running again. With this, I have to go back, get my drill started, and yeah, all that. Yeah, it's just more stuff you have to carry. Usually I carry a flathead to tune, a temperature gun. I always carry this with anything to always keep tab on temperatures. Your glow plug igniter, but just adding that drill is just a big bulky thing, and I really don't like the roto start because I think it runs on nickel metal hydride, and honestly that's LiPo, and that's a drill. I don't have to buy something that only has one use. I mean, with the drill, I can use it not only to work on stuff, drill holes, but I can also start stuff with roto start, and I will start putting roto start on some of my vehicles, like my T-Max. I do not like the Traxxas Easy Start. It's heavy, it adds a lot of weight. Even my Revo does not have that. It has a pull start, and about 10 really fast pulls, and it's started right up. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I hope I'm getting a little better. I'm going to start doing a few notes before I start the video so I stay on track. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. And don't forget about the giveaway starting February 2nd through March 2nd. I'm sorry it's a little late, but Christmas threw a lot of things off.